Yeah, everything we have is really something that connects to the spiritual side of things. I saw
Yeah.
this story in LifeSite News that was talking about how the baby boomer generation is literally LifeSiteNews.com headline says baby boomers are at risk of mass suicide under Canada's euthanasia regime. And they talk about what is ironic in the most tragic of ways is that the boomer generation is largely responsible for creating the moral framework that has allowed for euthanasia, and that same framework will be the agent of their own destruction. And it's talking about how euthanasia, called medical assistance in dying, and they always play games with the words. That's how they always hide the violence. Has become the norm in this once great nation in Canada, but ultimately, this idea of cheapening the human life, and to the point where you're putting experimental products in 6-month-old babies, you're forcing children to wear masks to show submission to the collective, when you're trying to normalize the idea of killing your elderly parents or friends because they're just too much of a drain on society. Everything that is we're seeing in front of us is a reflection of a spiritual brokenness at the heart of our culture.
Yeah. I like to, no question, I'd agree 100%. One word I use a lot of times is deconditioning. In the military, we talk about conditioning a lot, and it's not a word that we use much in the civilian world, but if you would think about what deconditioning is, whether you read Francis Schaeffer's book, The God Who Is There, whatever, who looked at the Nietzsche back in the 1830s and 40s, the psychological, the philosophical approaches that led to what happened in Europe at the turn of last century that led to the disaster of World War I. I mean, what an unbelievable, unmitigated disaster that was. In that war, there was a 1-month period where over 1 million men, German, British, and French men mostly, 1 million men died in 1 month. And it was because of ruling families, interrelated families, had a beef with each other that led to such disaster. And as a result, it emasculated the continent, if you will, with the loss of so many young men. And that was due to, in large part, the deconditioning, the loss of the spiritual approach to answering life's fundamental issues. And that took hold in America 20, 30 years later. And then we had the murder of JFK in broad daylight that was covered up. And then you look at the baby boomers. Look what they lived through. Look at the deconditioning that they lived through, whether it was the president killed in broad daylight, murdered in broad daylight, and nothing was done about it, or the lies of Vietnam War or Watergate, or what other, there are just countless, many things that indicated the depravity of the culture, the sexual revolution, of course. And now you look at what this generation of people in the twilight of their career, if you will, they've revealed their heart, and their heart is sad. Not, of course, every individual, but just en masse is a general assessment of that generation of humanity. And the most blessed country and blessed culture, the abundance in our culture. And you have a bunch of ingrates, basically. In Romans 1, the Lord tells us two things that lead to the destruction of the culture, and that is they did not glorify God, nor were they thankful. We are the biggest group of ingrates in the history of the world. Mm. And when you get and look at the twilight, so you look at the twilight of this generation's power, in their last years of their power, look what they've done in the last 3 years to our culture and to our country, and even more to the world at large.